Princess Nia welcomed lovers into her chambers under the cover of darkness, her desires as fierce as the fire that burned within her. By day, she was the kingdom's beloved jewel, graceful, poised, and untouchable. But by night, she surrendered to passion, defying the rules that bound her to a life she never chose. The palace walls held her secrets, but the whispers of her escapades could not be silenced. The palace servants spoke of the men who slipped out of her chambers before dawn, their faces hidden, but their purpose clear. The elders called her reckless, the women feared her power, and the men, they craved her, drawn to the intoxicating spell of a princess who loved without limits. But on the eve of her wedding, a man from her past returned, threatening to unravel everything. A man who once held her heart. A man who now stood between her, duty, and the dangerous truth she had spent years trying to escape. Would she choose love, loyalty, or the freedom she had always longed for? Or would her past finally consume her, destroying everything in its wake? Nia stood at the river's edge, her reflection rippling under the moon's silver light. The water whispered secrets only she could understand, carrying the voices of her past. Tomorrow, she would marry Obinna, a man who had watched her from a distance, while others had embraced her in the night. The villagers gossiped, calling her reckless, but they did not know her story. They did not know why she had sought the warmth of so many arms, nor what she had been searching for. The past was a heavy chain, and tonight she felt its weight more than ever. Years ago, Nia had been different, innocent, untouched by the burdens of longing. She had loved once, deeply and truly. His name was Ankem, and he had promised her forever. But forever had shattered the night his family took him away to a distant land, binding him to another woman. In her sorrow, Nia sought comfort in the arms of another, and then another. Each embrace was a desperate attempt to fill the void Ankem had left. But the emptiness only deepened. The village was small, and words traveled fast. Whispers turned into shouts, and soon Nia became the subject of every hushed conversation. Women clutched their husbands tighter when she passed. Mothers warned their sons to stay away. But the men came willingly, drawn by her beauty, by the sadness in her eyes that made them believe they could be the one to heal her. Obinna had always been different. Unlike the others, he did not chase after her, nor did he judge. He watched from the shadows, offering quiet understanding. One evening, he approached her with an offer: marry him, leave behind the past, and start anew. Nia laughed at first, but his gaze was steady. "I do not seek to own you, Nia," he said. "I seek to walk beside you." As the wedding drew closer, Nia's thoughts drifted to Ankem. Was he happy? Did he think of her? The past refused to stay buried. On the eve of her wedding, a messenger arrived at her doorstep, bearing a letter with familiar handwriting. Nkem's words burned into her soul. He was back. He wanted to see her. One last time. She met Nkem at the edge of the village, beneath the ancient baobab tree. He looked the same, yet different. Older, wiser. Regret flickered in his eyes. "I never stopped loving you," he confessed. Nia felt her heart tighten. Had she waited for him all these years, she might have believed him. But she was not the girl he had left behind. She had lived, she had loved, she had lost, and she had survived. News of her secret meeting spread like wildfire. The village elders called for her. "You shame us," one spat. "You disgrace your husband-to-be," said another. But Nia stood tall. "I have shamed no one," she declared. "I have made my choices, and I will answer to them, but not with shame." Obinna found her where he always did, by the river. "Do you regret?" he asked. She met his gaze. No. He exhaled, then extended his hand. Then let's go. The ceremony began at dawn, but before vows could be exchanged, a voice rang out. Stop! Nkem stood before them all, pleading for Nia to reconsider. You love me, he insisted. Say the word, and we leave together. The crowd gasped. Obina said nothing. He only looked at Nia, waiting. For the first time in years, Nia saw her path clearly. She turned to Nkem, once her past and her future. I loved you, she said, but I love myself more. With that, she took Obina's hand, stepping forward, not into a marriage of necessity, but into a choice entirely her own. Even as she stepped into marriage with Obina, the past followed Nia like a shadow. The village continued whispering. Some said she had bewitched Obina. Others claimed he was a fool. But Nia no longer cared for their words. She had chosen a man who chose her despite everything. And yet, late at night, she still dreamt of the faces of those she had once sought comfort from. Her mother, the queen, had remained silent throughout the ordeal, but on the night of the wedding, she summoned Nia. A princess must be above reproach, she said coldly. Your name has brought shame to our family. Nia met her mother's gaze and smiled sadly. I was never meant to be a princess of tradition. I am a woman of my own making. Her younger sister, Chizoba, had always envied her. Now, with Nia wed, Chizoba saw an opportunity. She whispered venomous lies into the queen's ear, warning her that Nia's ways would bring ruin upon the royal family. Soon, the queen considered banishing her daughter from the kingdom. Obina heard the whispers and saw the way people looked at him. Do you regret choosing me? Nia asked him one night. He took her hand, his grip steady. Never. But I fear the world will not let you live in peace. Nkem refused to let go. He sought an audience with the queen, begging her to annul the marriage and allow Nia to be with her true love. The queen, swayed by his pleas, offered Nia a choice, return to Nkem, and she would be restored in the queen's favor. But if she chose Obina, she would be stripped of her royal title. Nia stood before the court, her fate in her own hands. The village watched. Nkem pleaded. The queen waited. And Obina? He simply looked at her, waiting as he always had, never pressuring her to choose him. She took a deep breath and turned to the queen. Keep your title, she said. I have never needed it. Then she took Obina's hand, sealing her fate forever. Nia left the palace that day, walking away from royalty and into a life she had chosen for herself. With Obina, she built a home, not of luxury, but of love. And for the first time in her life, she felt truly free.